Hello students, here in this video I'll be explaining you Class 8 NCERT Chapter 1, The Best Christmas Present in the World, written by Michael Morpurgo. This story, children's, took place during the World War I, a war which was between the British and the Germans in the year 1914. So let's begin. In this lesson, we have four important characters. The first important character is Jim Macpherson. He was the leader of British troop. So before getting into war, he was a school teacher. Okay, he was a school teacher in Dorset, which is there in the west part of England. Okay, so this is the first important character of the lesson. The second important character is Connie Macpherson. So Connie Macpherson is the wife of Jim Macpherson. So after her husband went to war, she spent a whole life believing that she's going to see him again, and she was waiting for her husband to get back from the World War One. In short, okay. So Connie Macpherson is the wife of Jim Macpherson, and the third important character of this lesson is Hans Wolf. Okay, so he was the captain of the German troop. Okay, German troop के leader captain थे Hans Wolf. So before he get into war, before he came in for the war, he was working in an orchestra in Dusseldorf. Okay, so before the war, he was working in an orchestra. So these are the three important characters of the lesson. The fourth important character is the narrator itself. Okay, so who's the narrator? We'll assume is the narrator Michael Morpurgo. Okay, so let's start. So what happens is the narrator of the story, which is Michael Morpurgo, he went to a junk shop, okay, and purchased a roll top desk, okay, which was in a very bad condition. Okay, this is the first page, the part one of the lesson. So here we come to know that the narrator he went to a junk shop. Okay, so he purchased a roll top desk. I guess you all might be knowing what is a roll top desk. It is a writing desk. Okay, it has a flexible cover which has sliding. Okay, so this is a roll top desk. In short, it is a table, old traditional table. Okay, so he bought that, and which was in a very bad condition. So the narrator started. So he took that roll top desk. Why he took that roll top desk? Because though it was in a bad condition, he got that in a cheap amount because he cannot afford the expensive one. So he thought that though it is in a bad condition, I'll repair it. So he bought the table. So the narrator started repairing. Okay, so he was repairing on a Christmas Eve. Okay, so it was on a Christmas Eve. He thought of repairing the table so that he can use it. So while he was repairing the table, he saw a drawer. He saw that a letter is there in one of its drawer. Okay, so he took that letter out. He read the letter, and it was written that it was from Jim Macpherson to his wife Connie. It was written on the top of the letter. So he opened the letter, he started reading it, and found that Jim Macpherson was the leader of the England army, and he described that England and Germany were engaged in a war. Okay, so here part one ends. So part one in this part one, he is actually repairing the table, and he found out the letter, and what he found that it was written by Jim Macpherson to his wife. So this is only part one, and in this part two, the letter starts. Okay, so he starts reading the letter. So he found out in this letter, in this part, which I'm showing you right now, in this part, he found that Jim Macpherson, he is leader. Okay, England army ke leader the, and he is describing everything which is going on that day. On which day? On Christmas day, which we will come to know. So they were engaged in a war between England and Germany. Okay, on the Christmas morning, something unusual thing happened. Unusual but wonderful thing happened. So he has given detailed explanation in this letter that what unusual and what a wonderful thing happened on the Christmas morning, where there was a war going on, where there was the World War One going on, in that place. So what happened was, in short, I'll explain you. The German people, the German troops, wishes Happy Christmas to English soldiers. Okay, so the opponents, the against whom the English were fighting, the Germans. So they came forward. The troops came forward in the no man's land and started wishing English soldiers Happy Christmas. Okay, and in the beginning here, these people who the Britishers, they were doubting that this might be a trap. Let's not fall into this. Let's not go ahead and wish them. It might be a trap. They might attack us. So here they didn't. They were not sure about going into the no man's land, but still, but when they saw that German troops were coming forward and they were without arms and they were wishing them wishing them very politely, so they thought of giving so they also thought that they would wish them back, so they also went forward and responded the wishes. They also wished them back Merry Christmas. Okay, so the leaders, the both the leaders now the both the leaders, both the troops met each other, and the leaders started sharing their ideas and feelings with each other and celebrated Christmas by eating, laughing, talking, and drinking. Okay, so here in the lesson it is given in detail. I'm telling you in short. So here they very wonderfully, both the troops in that phase of World War One. We all know that involved during wars, people fight against country. One country fights against the other country, right? So here what happens is, on the Christmas day, they both the countries, both the open countries, both the enemy countries, in short, they both were celebrating Christmas very sweetly. Yeah, this is humanity, I would say. So both the teams, both the country troop members, they started sharing, they celebrated, they ate together, they laughed together, they drank alcohol together, and they played football also. Okay, so when they were playing football, they had a football match in which German people won. And though German people won, they responded that they responded in page number 13. Hans Wolf, the leader of German, he responds generously that our goal was wider than theirs, so it wasn't quite fair. So this sentence he uses. So what does this imply is, though they won, but they are motivating and inspiring the other country that you also played very well. In short, okay. So okay, so this is the line in page number 13. This is the page. And so this is how they played. They enjoyed the day. The whole day was over, and at the night, they both parted. They both parted and they both went into their troops, went into their camps. Okay, camps and trenches and so on. So they went, both the countries went in their places, took their positions, and once they came in their places, it was almost night, and they both were singing carols. Okay, so Germans started carols. Actually, the Germans started singing the carols, which was Silent Night. I guess we might know it. If not, that's not a problem. So, Silent Night Carol, it is a very beautiful carol. So, the Germans started singing it, and the Britishers, they were also not behind. Once they heard them singing, they also started singing, and it was a very wonderful day. So in this part too, we come to know that though there was a war, but during the Christmas day, both of them enjoyed, celebrated, and both of them actually shared the view that nobody wants the war, they want peace, so that this war ends and they could go to their family. Okay, so while they were talking, they both talked about their family, they talked about their children and where they live, what they do. So likewise, so this is how they shared the views that each and every soldier wants the war to be ended peacefully, so that they all can go home and see their family and live a happy life. Okay, this is the this is the short explanation of the letter. So once if you go through the letter, you will come to know in detail that what all things happened, what they ate. They had cakes, they had marzipan, a cake is mentioned in the lesson, and they also shared drinks with each other. So you will come to know if you read the lesson. Okay, so part 2 here ends. So now is part 3. Okay, so so part 3 starts. Hold on. So here the so part one was part one ends, part two ends. So here the letter also ends, which was written by Jim Macpherson to his wife. So the narrator Michael, he read the letter. So in part three, he folded the letter, and he decided that he would give this letter to Jim's wife. Okay, Jim Macpherson. He's going to return the letter to the one to whom the letter belongs. Okay, so yeah, there was address mentioned in that letter, so he went to the address which was there on the letter's envelope. So and he found out the place. Okay, so he found out the place, and it was an accident. So what happened was the place wasn't uh, the place was not in a good condition. It actually the actually Connie Macpherson's, where she was living, that place got fire accidentally, and the house was completely burnt. Okay, so he went to the neighbor and asked about the whereabouts of Mrs. Macpherson. So that man, the neighbor, he helped him and told the narrator that where Jim Macpherson lives. So Mrs. Jim Macpherson, Connie Macpherson lives. So where she was living, she was taken to a nursing home. She was too aged. She was too aged as of now, and completely gray hairs, old. She was sitting in a wheelchair. Here we will come to know that she is very old. Okay, so the narrator Michael came to know about the address where address of the nursing home, and he went there. And on the Christmas day itself, so in the nursing home also, Christmas celebration was going on. So, and still Mrs. Connie Macpherson and Mrs. Macpherson actually. So she was waiting for her husband to come back. Okay, so she is still in the hope that her husband is still in war or still in the border, and he would come back to see her. Okay, so once the narrator went towards Connie, and gave that letter to her. So she was grown too old. Okay, she was grown too old in waiting of her husband. So when she saw the letter, it was written that it is from her husband Jim Macpherson. So she thought that the person standing in front of her is also Jim. So she is assuming Michael as her husband Jim, and the narrator told the whole complete story, that he found the letter in a tabletop, in a drawer, and he read the letter, and finally he is there to give that letter, and so on. So when he was explaining these things to her, she wasn't even listening. Okay, so she is assuming that her husband has arrived. So she opened the letter, and she says in the end, she actually starts loving Michael, because she was assuming that he is her husband. Okay, so in the end, Connie is uh, asking Michael, to whom she's assuming that it is Jim. She says that you told me you would come home by Christmas, dearest, and here you are. Okay, this is the best Christmas present in the world. Okay, in the letter also, she come to know that he is telling that the next Christmas I would be celebrating with you, and so on. And before going also, Jim told her that I would be back by the next Christmas, and so she's saying that you told me before also that you're going to come on a Christmas day, and here you are in the Christmas day. So gift is the best Christmas present in the world for me. Okay, so that is why the name of the lesson is the best Christmas present in the world. We would assume that the best Christmas present would be something materialistic, right? Something precious, or something materialistic which we would prefer. So here for Connie, her husband's letter, and she's assuming that her husband returned. That was the best Christmas present in the world for her. Okay, so now in the end, she asks Michael, which she was assuming that her husband, that Michael is not Michael, it is her husband. So she's asking her, now you are back, you only read the letter. Okay, so Michael understood it. So Michael says that, yes, I would love to read the letter for you. And so he reads the letter for her. And afterwards, he says that we will enjoy the Christmas together, and we will enjoy and have a great time. Okay, so this is in short, I had explained you what happened in the lesson. Okay, so this year the chapter ends. Part 1, I'll tell you in brief again, in short again. Part 1, the narrator buys the tabletop, and it was in a bad condition. Okay, it was in a bad condition. And so why he took the bad condition table, because he was not able to afford the expensive table. So he took the bad condition table so that he could repair. So while he was repairing, in one of the drawer he saw a letter. This was in the part 1. So in part 2, he read the letter which was written by Jim Macpherson to his wife Connie Macpherson. And in that letter he is explaining what happened on the Christmas day during the war. Okay, during the war, on Christmas day, both the countrymen celebrated Christmas, and how did they celebrated Christmas, that is explained in detail in part 2. And in part 3, he finished reading the letter, and he decides to go back to return the letter to the person it belongs, which is Connie, to return the letter to the Connie. Okay, it is here. Part 3 is here. So in part 3, he goes and finds out the address. The first address was completely ruined because the house where Connie was living was burnt accidentally, and she was shifted to the nursing home. So he found that nursing home. He went and met Connie and told the whole story, but the whole story was not heard by Connie Macpherson, because she was very old. Okay, very old lady now. So she was assuming her husband had returned. Okay, so the chapter ends very nicely, very lovely ending has been shown to us. So she thinks her husband returned, and she is very loved now. She is very happy. So here the chapter ends. So just go through the lesson once again, you will understand it. Okay, thank you very much.